everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm Keith Barry.
So we're going to start off today's show talking about the all-new Genesis GV60, an all-electric small SUV. These are our first impressions, very early impressions based on a sample that we rented from Genesis. Now, if you don't know what the GV60 is, it's on an all-EV platform that's shared with the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and that's called the eGMP platform. Size-wise, it's actually a little smaller than the GV70, but in some aspects of the interior actually are a little larger than the GV70. There's two versions. There's an advanced all-wheel drive which is going to have about 314 horsepower, and a performance all-wheel drive model that has 429 horsepower. And some of this stuff's kind of still up in the air because we don't have all the official information still from Genesis at this time. But Keith, I mentioned that the GV60 is on a platform that's shared with the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Can you just tell us a little bit about ways that the GV60 is different than those two?
Absolutely. The first thing you're going to notice now, again, Genesis is kind of keeping a lot of stuff close to the vest about things like pricing. And, the EPA hasn't tested the range yet, but we've got estimates from them. But we assume it's probably going to be a little more expensive than either the EV6 or the Ioniq 5, because Genesis is a premium brand. It's a premium car. So obviously it's going to be a little more expensive. But it's not just because of that added luxury. You'll notice, Monty, you said the two trim levels, both of those were all-wheel drive. You're not going to get a rear-wheel drive only version of this vehicle, at least not in the United States. With the EV6 and the Ioniq 5, you can get a rear-wheel drive only version, and that's the entry-level model. And that's going to make it a little bit less expensive. And it also is going to give it a little more range. What we've heard so far from Genesis, they're estimating the range of the GV60 is going to be between 235 and 248 miles per a full charge. And some of the Hyundai and the Kia, they go up over 300 with just the rear-wheel drive. Otherwise, personally, I think the look, the interior, it has a little bit more of a premium feel. Not luxury, but it's a little nicer than the EV6 or the Ioniq 5. I also think that it deals with some of the issues that we had with the EV6 and the Ioniq 5 in terms of things like controls. And I think, if you've been in a Genesis before, if you've read our reviews of any recent Genesis, the GV60 has similar controls, and you don't have to switch between buttons for volume or climate the way you did in the EV6. The shifter isn't hidden behind the steering wheel like it is in the Ioniq 5. So it's almost kind of a little bit of a best of both worlds. But I'll let you folks talk about it, talk some more about it. But there are things like that. The shifter itself. It's on the back of this glowing orb.
It's a crystal sphere.
It's a crystal sphere. That sounds like a Steely Dan lyric. But you start the car and it just kind of we'll throw in a video of it. But
yeah.
It has some just kind of cool stuff to it, but it doesn't to me feel. The EV6 and the Ioniq 5. I said, man, this is nice for a Kia. Man, this is nice for a Hyundai. But the GV60, I got in and I said, this is nice. But the other Genesises, they really set a high bar with some of their other cars, I think.
So it's nice, but maybe not nice for a Genesis. And we can get, right, is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And we can get more into that in a little bit. But let's talk about the driving, because that's the one thing that no one else can do, that only we can do, since we rented one. The folks watching, probably no one watching or listening to the show will have been able to get into it. So let's talk about that, and let's start off by saying that you can go to consumerreports.org and check out our full road test results of the Hyundai Ioniq 5. And the reason I bring that up is because they're related. And what we have found out is that this is one of our favorite EVs that's ever been made. It did fantastic in our tests, and it is just a great vehicle. So now we have the GV60, similar, same platform, similar vehicle. And you know what? I like it even better. And again, this is without knowing the price. So I'm putting that out there, that maybe my opinion will change when I see what the price is. But as a vehicle, the way it drives, I think, it's a little bit smaller dimensionally than the other two. And I'm sure it's not true, but it drives a little lighter. The EV6 and the Ioniq 5, EVs in general are kind of heavy because the battery packs are the weight there. There's a lot of weight there. This thing, the steering to me is a little more responsive. It tells you a little bit more about what's going on with the car, and it handles, I think, a little nicer and maybe even a little more forgiving when you turn all the stability control and everything off, because you can actually slide all three of those cars around, which is super fun. They turn almost into, rear drive like vehicles. But I just thought that the way this GV60, handled just a little bit sharper than the other two, yet I didn't feel like it gave up anything in ride quality. In terms of how quick it is, it feels similarly quick to the other two. It's got the same basic power, which is to say it's quite quick. You get above 60 or 70 miles an hour and you hit the throttle harder to get some more juice, so to speak. It's not going to have that Tesla wow, it just keeps going. These ones don't do that. But I thought as a whole, I think it's a little bit sharp in those guys, and it's just takes the fun up even a little bit higher. Jake, what did you think?
Well, I think, I'm kind of torn. I look at it kind of like the big picture, right? And the big picture is, right, it's this vehicle and its siblings, right? You look at the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, and I think it may surprise or many people, and you have to kind of remember that, wow, the Koreans are kind of like the dark horse in this competition of EVs. I don't think it's the first, auto manufacturer you think of when you think about electric vehicles. Obviously there's a lot of, talk about other ones, but they're not even on the first generation of this. Right? They've had, the Kia Niro EV, we've got the Kona Electric. They've got some experience. And, like you said, the Ioniq 5, which we have tested. In terms of the road test score, it's second to none. Top rating that we've seen in our tests. That is not something to sneeze at. And here's just another sibling, another flavor.
And it's reasonably priced.
Absolutely. And it's just a whole thing, and that all of these vehicles really share. They have extremely long wheelbases. There's really nice packaging. They really do look distinctive. And the driving experience, it kind of really shocked us, I think. I think all of us who have driven these vehicles on the track were just shocked. Here's an EV that you could do donuts with if you wanted to. You could drift this car, opposite locks, spinning wheels, smoke. Really, in addition to being efficient and all these different things. So it really kind of blew us away. In terms of kind of slicing between these ones, right. I was super impressed with the Ioniq 5. Here's a vehicle that's a little bit smaller. I think you're right. I think in terms of the driving, it may be, but I kind of like the rear seat of the Ioniq 5. The rear seat is a little bit more cramped. It's lower to the ground.
You're right.
So, it's a little bit kind of like what flavor. This vehicle does have a lot of features. And obviously, this is what we see with electric vehicles. They kind of use it as this kind of like test bed for new technologies. It's got stuff where, it recognizes you to unlock the door. There's a fingerprint sensor you could use to start the car. Seems futuristic. It's the stuff that we're used to on our smartphones for years, but it makes sense in automotive application. So I think it's kind of like, do you want to go and, maybe make a few little compromises to get kind of the latest technology? In terms of the infotainment, I got to say, I'm still a bit annoyed by it. It's better than Genesis generally because the screen's closer to you, so you could use it as a touch screen much easier. But still, it's like you want to turn the radio on and there's 6 tabs and then you got to do with the other 6 tabs and there's 18 different tabs. And, if you want to listen to the FM, you click on the XM and then you bring up another menu. It's just it looks neat, but, living with it, maybe not as straightforward as some of the other ones.
Yeah, totally agree. And I do agree on that rear seat. You sit back there and, my hair almost touches the roof. Admittedly, I have kind of spiky hair that stands straight up on its end. So maybe that's not a fair comparison. But just things like the seat back rake, I think there isn't as much travel as there is in the EV6, and the handle's a little more awkward to find. Your foot space is kind of squished underneath.
Yeah, there's no room for your feet in there.
Yeah,
you have to the clown shoes under the seat in front of you.
It's almost like Genesis is saying, hey, we'll give you the extra seat and back just for an occasional person, but this it really is a car for for two people, I guess. But I just want to touch on one other thing, which is all three look, I think, dramatically different from each other. Like that almost could be your choice could be purely which one do you think looks the best? And I think they all look cool in their own way. Do you know what I mean?
Remember the days when like GM used to put out like 4 different versions of a car and they all look the same with a different badge? I mean, those days are gone. I mean, these cars look not only distinctive from each other, but also really interesting, like really different. They are not cookie cutters. And I mean, each one of them just are very distinctive and I think good looking vehicles. I mean, we talked about it before. I mean, first time we saw the Ioniq 5, we were like, is this like a show car? Is this like a concept or something? Yeah. Oh no, that's production. They all kind of have that kind of feel to them.
Yeah, I walked into the garage one day. This is months ago. And then when they had left an Ioniq 5 there for us to drive, and I thought someone had dropped off a show car. I really thought, I was like, what is that thing? Oh no, that's a production vehicle. Keith, what other things did you like or dislike about the GV60, whether it's the driving or something else with the interior?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you something I love about all of these cars, and it's an electric car thing because that battery is low and you don't need the transmission tunnel or anything. You can have a ton of interior space in these vehicles, especially when they're designed from the ground up. It's different when you have a gas car design that somebody put batteries and an electric motor in. This eGMP platform, because it's a dedicated electric platform, you've got tons of room up front and the storage space under the center console. Every time I looked, I found another nook, another cranny. I thought that was pretty cool about this vehicle. I also like the fact, and I drove it back to back between a couple of performance SUVs, and I like the fact that if you want, you can put it in sport mode and get that kind of, EV acceleration. But around town, it just feels like a really, really well-tuned gas car. If you're going from a gasoline vehicle, you're not going to find, and you don't want to have a ton of regenerative braking that slows the car when you take your foot off the gas pedal. You don't need to have that. You can adjust it so you don't have that. If you don't want to accelerate super quickly, you're not going to go off the line with all that EV torque. It just feels just smooth. It's incredible.
They're incredibly mature. I mean, for vehicles that kind of like are just hitting the market, I mean, just really, really well tuned, very quiet, very, just seem very well put together.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To that end, Jake, what Keith was just talking about with the regen braking, some EVs make you like go through a screen to adjust the regenerative braking. Whereas what these Hyundai products are doing is all three of them do it the same way. You use these paddles behind the steering wheel. The left paddle, you can, change it from level 0, which is no regen braking, to 1, 2, 3, or then level 4, which is called iPedal. And that means basically it's going to give you a ton of regen braking to the point that you can actually do what we call one pedal driving and almost never use the brake pedal, even come to a complete stop if you time your, letting off the throttle pedal correctly. But then if you're like, oh no, that's too much, just quickly use the right paddle, change it back to level 3 or level 2. And I just think, why would you make it any harder than that? But here's the big question, Jake. Okay, the big question is, are we buying a Genesis GV60 for the test program?
Sure, of course.
Whatever.
I heard you liked how it drove, and I said, sure, we'll get one on order. Don't you worry about nothing. It's all right. About you.
Anyway, great discussion, guys. If you want to learn more about the GV60, please go to consumerreports.org, and we have a lot more information up about it there. Let's move on to an audience question. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. And, as luck would have it, we have one of those video clips today. So let's give a listen to Shahab from Murrieta, California.
Hey, Talking Cars. Is there a regulation on how bright daytime running lights can be? Or is there one in progress? Just because I drive around at night and I notice that people have their lights turned off, but their daytime running lights are on. And it's frustrating because you can't see them from behind, but they think that their lights are on. And then part two, I live in California, and on my Ford Fusion, I have fog lights. And I noticed that people drive around with their fog lights on. I personally like the look of having my fog lights on. Is there any dangers of having your fog lights on when the weather is clear? Or is there any law against it? Love the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
All right, so Keith, I'm going to go to you on this. We basically have a two-parter from Shahab, which is there a maximum legal brightness of daytime running lights? And is there any laws that say that you can't have your fog lights on during the day?
Well, if you want to go crazy and just learn everything you want to learn about federal motor vehicle safety standards, you can you can look at them in the Federal Register online. And within the FMVSS, the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, lighting is standard number 108. And yes, there are tons of things about lumens and lux and about angles and brightness. And the thing is, that's what happens when a car comes out of the factory. 3, 4, 5 years later, you hit a couple of bumps, you get into a crash, you change out your headlights, who knows? And those headlights could be pointed in totally different directions. They could be pointed right up at the windshields of oncoming drivers. And unless you're in a state that does inspections for that, and unless that inspector's actually doing a really thorough job on the car, you're never going to know. So yes, there's a lot that goes into telling car manufacturers what they can do with headlights. But maintaining them is, I would say, a little bit lax in this country. There are also a lot of changes coming too. So if you want to learn about these new headlights, which are finally going to be legal in the United States, because they weren't allowed for in standard 108. These are called smart headlights or adaptive driving beam or ADB headlights. And what they are is they're these really powerful LED headlights that can either shut off and turn on certain headlights in order to shine the light exactly where it wants to go, or they'll have these shutters that come up and act almost like almost like an eclipse, and they'll block the headlight from shining into the eyes of oncoming drivers, but it will illuminate, say, the sidewalk or the curve that's coming up. These are fancy. They're expensive. They're probably going to be optional on luxury cars. Audi's really kind of leaning into it. They call them matrix headlights. They're coming soon, but probably not going to be so widespread as to not be shining in your face for a couple of years to come.
Keith, I feel like you're avoiding the question, so I'm just going to go straight to Jake on this one. Jake, what is your opinion on people driving during the day with their fog lights on? I think it was back in the 80s and 90s. Yes, folks, I am that old, and Keith wouldn't have any part of this conversation except he's an old soul, so he knows all things from 80s and 90s. I think you saw a lot of people back then driving around with just their fog lights on during the day, I think because they thought it looked cool. Whether it was aftermarket fog lights, I'm not sure why they were able to do that. But these days, a new car, a lot of them do have fog lights, but they can only be on when your headlights are on. So Jake, how do you feel about people, I guess, I don't know if looking cool or why they would have their fog lights on during the day?
So I think there's a couple things. I think one, you got to consider, what are we talking about in terms of light? So, I mean, look, I think if you're like me and you've ever been like, behind you is that truck with the light bar, that's shining in your face. That's not what we're talking about here. Those are not fog lights. Those are like, I'm out in the, forest and I've got
You're
something
a jerk
on my...
if you have those on when you're driving. I am going to come out and say
I
that.
like that Keith just said it.
You're a jerk if you
know what I'm
do that.
talking about, right?
I knew I could get him fired up.
These
I'm not
LED
going to pass
bars,
judgment on our readers, but on our viewers, but yeah.
And the back of your head like catches fire when they turn them on.
You're right, Jake. It's for driving off road. That's what those are for. But
those are
unfortunately, some people
off-road
use them, but some people
lights.
use them on the road. Yeah.
Right. So let's put those aside for a moment. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about factory lights that are on the vehicle, and you could turn those on and off. If they're really designed for driving or fog, generally they're not really that bright. They're not like high beams. They're not really bothering anyone in front of you. And I got to be honest, they do make the car look kind of cool. More light generally, more better. I don't think you're really harming anything. I don't think you're using a whole lot of gasoline to really drive those either. So I think if you think it makes the car look kind of cool and it makes you happy, go for it. That's not really a big problem. And what's interesting too is you see a lot of the new cars, there's lights all over the place. You see some of these cars where the headlights aren't really the headlights. And there's, the Tucson, the Hyundai Tucson, I think is a good example of that.
The press release, they
everywhere.
call them light signatures, that you're supposed to be able to even recognize a car in the dark. Everything is branding now. So you have to be able to recognize. I used to just be able to recognize police cars, but now you can recognize
That's the important
everything.
thing.
Yeah.
But I think you could go for it. You're not going to really, don't have your high beams on. Don't get the off-road beams. But,
The one thing I would say is that the downside to running your fog lights during the day when you don't really need them is that you're making it more likely that you'll have to replace them, that they'll burn out or whatever sooner than you have to if you only use them at night. Keith, go ahead, Jake. You were going to say something.
Well, actually, I just want to that point, one thing about DRLs. So let's talk DRLs for a second, right? Driving lights, daytime
running lights.
Daytime running lights. I'm just making up words at this point. So daytime running lights. Thank you. So one thing to keep in mind, yes, those are on all the time during the day. They are not being run at their normal voltage. So when you run a DR, it's actually generally your high beams, but they're running at a low voltage. What that means, and I long time ago actually worked in a light dimmer company, but we don't have time to talk about that. But what that means is they're going to
it was called the clapper.
No. No, they you get transistors and you run. Anyway, but what it means is when you run a light at a lower voltage, at a lower power than it's actually designed for, it lasts a really long time. So the way the DRLs are designed is it doesn't really hurt the how long that light will last. Whereas if you are running your fog lights or your driving lights or whatever they are, yes, you will have to replace them more often.
Jake, you are a wealth of information.
Only the lights are dim. Only the lights are dim.
Oh, that was
all right.
Good.
Well, that's going to wrap up this episode about fog lights. We thought it was about the Genesis GV60, but it really was mostly. We just wanted to talk about the fog lights. If you want to learn more about the cars and the topics we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips. We love those video clips to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.